Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back to the channel for this installment of Open Mic, the show where the mic is open, the floor is yours. What is it you want to talk about? That's what we're here to do on Open Mic. Kind of a version of the John Campea Show, just a lot more laid back, kind of relaxed, and just having some fun conversations. That's what we're here to do. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. Good to have you guys here this afternoon, as we do a couple times a week, do an open mic. And, as we do, I like to start off talking about a topic that somebody suggests to me, and then we go in and start taking your questions. Now, there's two different ways you can get a question or an observation, whatever, addressed on open mic. The first way is by anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week that you have a thought or a question, you can go ahead and use our tip link right here at streamelements.com/John Campea/tip. You'll find a link for that as well down in the description of the video. The other way to get a question on the show is if you happen to be watching live right now, you can use the super chat feature in the live chat and send that in. I'll let you guys know that the super chats have been very active already, and they're almost full. So I'm going to be turning off the super chats probably in the next 10 to 15 minutes. So if you've got a thought, theory, opinion, or question you'd like to fire in, go ahead and use that. As always, as long as your topics and questions are appropriate to be used on the show, I'll address it here on Open Mic. All right, let's talk about this, shall we? Somebody said they'd love to hear me talk about this, and so that's what we're going to do. Oscar Sunday is here, and one of the movies that's not going to be in there is Dune 2, because Dune 2 got moved out of 2023 into 2024, so it'll be eligible for next year's Academy Awards. But Oppenheimer is eligible this year, probably going to win, well, most likely going to win Best Picture. And something that those movies have in common. Well, Florence Pugh is in both of them, and Florence Pugh and Anya Taylor-Joy are, of course, in Dune 2, and will probably both appear in Dune 3. And it's brought up the question, who's the hotter actress right now? Because actually, the last couple of years, these two are kind of ruling everything. And the reason that when somebody asked me to bring this up as a topic, that it really stood out to me is I was talking to a casting person. It was just before Dune 2. Well, actually, it was a few weeks before Dune 2 opened. So let's say around the beginning of February, I was talking to this casting person, and they were saying that it's like almost everything they have to read now, people are asking for either Anya Taylor-Joy or Florence Pugh, or an Anya Taylor-Joy type or a Florence Pugh type. Like, those are the two, this casting person told me, that kind of the whole industry is kind of buzzing around. There are other names as well. Absolutely. It's not like it's only those two. But they said predominantly in the industry right now, those are the two names that get brought up the most. Like, there's no actress right now that's kind of on a hotter streak, or their name is really hot right now as much as Florence Pugh or Anya Taylor-Joy. It's really down to the two of them. And again, there are other big names out there right now. There are other names that have a lot of heat behind them, but none of them right now, at least according to my own eyeballs and this casting person I was talking to, the two hottest names in the industry right now are Anya Taylor-Joy and Florence Pugh. So the question is, like, which one of them is hotter right now? And I thought we would take a second and take a look. And by the way, it's crazy that they're both in Dune 2 and they're both going to be a part of Dune Messiah. So that's going to be kind of awesome to see both of them in there at the same time. But like, Anya Taylor-Joy has kind of been like top of the list for the last couple of years. Like, if you just look at the last couple of years, obviously Dune Part 2, that's a smaller role. The voice, we're not going to really worry too much about doing voice work and animation. Not that voice work or animation is any lesser, but I don't think Super Mario Brothers made over $1 billion because Anya Taylor-Joy did a voice in it, but still, it's there. She was part of a huge ensemble in Amsterdam, even though that movie wasn't very good. But then she was the star of The Menu. And she kills it in that. Like, her acting in The Menu is absolutely incredible. I'm not a big Peaky Blinders fan, but she was really good in that. She was remarkable in The Northman. Her and Skarsgård were both top notch, but I'm telling you, it's weird when you're an actress in a movie with Why am I freezing on who played Skarsgård's mom? Nicole Kidman. When you're an actress in a movie with Nicole Kidman and you are the one that shines, that's saying something. And she actually absolutely killed in that. I didn't love Last Night in Soho, but oh my, like a lot of people did love it. But my God, she was amazing in it. She straight up was Emmy worthy in The Queen's Gambit. I think The Queen's Gambit is really kind of the movie that put her on the radar for all. I mean, everybody had heard of her at that point, but I think that Queen's Gambit was the thing that made most people like really sit up and take notice of just how good she is. I mean, she should have won Emmys for that. She might have won Emmys for that. I can't remember, but like she has just turned in maybe consistently the best streak of performances in the last 4 years. I'd be hard pressed to name another actress who's turned in like the kind of streak of performances that Anya Taylor-Joy has turned in. Northman could have been nominated for an Oscar. Last Night in Soho, incredible. Queen's Gambit, Emmy worthy. Really good in Peaky Blinders. Killed it in The Menu, and so on and so forth. And that's one of the big things. Now, but then you got to look at Florence Pugh. Florence Pugh, obviously Dune Part 2 right now. And by the way, Florence Pugh, she's about to do something that it's happened, but not many actors or actresses get to say they ever did. Florence Pugh is about to be in the Best Picture of the Year Academy Award winner 2 years in a row. Because she's about to see Oppenheimer win. So she's going to go up on stage with the rest of the cast for Oppenheimer. And next year, she's going to be in the Best Picture winning film at the Oscars next year with Dune Part 2. Not many actors, not many performers, some, but not many, have ever been able to say that they were in back-to-back Best Picture of the Year Academy Award winning films. I'm just kind of pointing that out. Anyway, let's go back to this. Much like Anya Taylor-Joy in Mario Brothers, we're not going to worry too much about her being in The Boy and the Heron. Obviously, Oppenheimer, she was so good and a good person. And I felt bad because I was really late to that party. I remember I saw the trailers for it. I thought it looked really interesting and really good. And then I was like super late getting to it, and I watch it, and she's just incredible in it. Don't Worry, Darling. I didn't like the film. I didn't really like Don't Worry, Darling. But Florence Pugh was great in it. Obviously, playing Yelena in the MCU, she's great in that. It's just, I'm telling you, man, like she is really, really killing it. Florence Pugh right now is absolutely killing it. She's one of the bright spots of the MCU right now. We'll see how much. I mean, she's got Thunderbolts going right now. And just like top of the world, and it's not a surprise why so many casting people are in Hollywood and directors and whatever, they're coming out of the gate saying, okay, first choice for female lead in this, they're saying either Florence Pugh or they're saying Anya Taylor-Joy. These two right now are kind of ruling it, and I think they're going to be ruling it, both of them together, probably for the next 4 or 5 years, which is absolutely nuts. And I see some people in the live chat throwing out the name Sydney Sweeney. Don't get me wrong. I like Sydney Sweeney. I really do. I like her very much. And I think she's got some good upside, some good potential, but she's nowhere near this conversation right now. Like she's not in this conversation right now. Let's bring her up again in a couple of years, and we'll talk. But yeah. And Michael, like, yeah, she was just in a flop, but that doesn't mean anything. Just because she was in a flop, that doesn't mean the flop was her fault, or that doesn't take anything away. That doesn't take anything away from her ability as an actress. I think she is a good, fine actress. I just haven't seen anything that screams to me Oscar potential, like a long run Oscar potential, like both Anya Taylor-Joy and Florence Pugh have. And I mean, Mike's asking the big question right now: who gets an Oscar first? Anya Taylor-Joy or Florence Pugh? Who gets an Oscar first? Right now, I'm going to have to say Anya Taylor-Joy. I think Anya Taylor-Joy is going to be the first one to get an Oscar. Right now, this is, again, there's no wrong answer with either of these two. But right now, I think Anya Taylor-Joy has turned in, I think, the more Oscar-worthy performances than Florence. But Florence totally has the ability to grab a couple. She totally does. Absolutely. I mean, I get excited about seeing either of these two in movies right now. I mean, it's hard to... Now, remember, we're talking about the hottest right now, not the greatest of all time, right? But there's a couple of other good ones right now. Zendaya, obviously, is a very good one right now. I don't think she's on the same level as Anya Taylor-Joy or Florence Pugh quite yet, but she could be joining that list in the next 2 years or so. I don't even know if I'd call Anya Best Young Actress, because how old is Anya Taylor-Joy? Like, Anya Taylor-Joy age. How old is she? Anya Taylor-Joy is 27 years old. I mean, she's not old, but I wouldn't exactly call her a young actress right now. Yeah, it's like these two are just incredible. They're amazing. The fact that we're going to get to see both of them play more prominent roles in Dune Messiah or Dune 3, whatever you want to call it, is also really, really cool. And yeah, so these two are the hottest. They're just on a hot streak right now. They are the names that everybody's talking about. They are the names that the industry is talking about. They are the ones that are first choice lists on most directors' thing, and it's incredible. So I would say personally, the hot one right now is Anya Taylor-Joy. I'm going to say she's the hotter name right now. By the way, she's got Furiosa coming up, which, I mean, that could put her really over the top. With Furiosa coming. So we'll see. Look, there's no wrong answer here. Clearly, there's no wrong answer. But who do you think is the hotter right now? Do you think Anya Taylor-Joy is the hotter actress right now? Or do you think Florence Pugh is the hotter actress right now? I think they're the 1 and 2. Whatever order you want to put them in, that's up to you. All right. With that down, guys, let's get over to your questions, shall we? And we are going to start off with, where are we going first? That's the wrong one. We're going to go over to Biggest Dickus, who writes, Monty Python's official YouTube channel has the Life of Brian clip where he denies being the Messiah. All the recent comments are Dune 2 related, of course. The Mahdi is too humble to say he is the Mahdi. All the recent comments are Dune 2 related, and there's a lot of them. Also, Hideo Kojima, the video game guy, gave a glowing recommendation for Shogun on his Twitter. Well, I mean, listen, yeah, Shogun, I can't believe how good Shogun is. And especially coming off of, say, Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, which I was so excited about and quite frankly disappointed me. Like, listen, I think Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power is better than a lot of people give it credit for, but it was still quite disappointing to me because it was nowhere near as good as it could have been. Had definitely some great episodes, but also some very poor episodes. Made some really good, cool choices, but also some very poor choices. And so I came out of that super excited, that I'm super excited for a TV show, quite disappointed. And so going into Shogun, I was again worried that I would end up getting disappointed. But man, it's so good. It's so good. And I kind of agree, well, sort of agree with Screen Pop saying if Shogun sticks to landing, it's a goated show. I don't know if I go so far as goated, but I would say this. If Shogun sticks the landing, and that's a big if, because we still got 7 episodes to go. If it sticks the landing, then I would say it belongs in the conversation with House of the Dragon and Last of Us as the best shows going right now. I'm not going to call it goated, but I mean, it will definitely be up there right alongside House of the Dragon, Last of Us, Shogun are the best things we've had on TV the last couple of years. So we'll see. Fingers crossed that it sticks the landing, but I've seen a lot of shows that had promising starts that not stick the landing. So I'm going to try to temper my expectations. All right, BK Dan writes, John, regarding Comic-Con, I think James Gunn will show in a live video feed from set of Superman with the "This is your new soups" and introduce him. What do you mean introduce him? We already know who Superman is. Oh, so I completely believe that James Gunn can send in a video. I do not believe it'll be a live feed. It won't be a live feed, but I do believe James Gunn will probably send in a video message. Hey, Comic-Con, so wish I could be there, but we're busy on the set of the brand new Superman and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, they'll bring a couple of people out there, but it's not the same as being there, you know? Like, because I was looking forward to, and I get, listen, James Gunn made the right decision. You don't step away from shooting Superman just to do a convention. You stick with it, keep your eyes on the prize, stay focused, do Superman, worry about everything else later. So I'm not complaining. I think James Gunn is making the right decision by not coming. That being said, what I was really kind of excited about was to see not just James Gunn talk about Superman. I was excited to see James Gunn come out, kind of the way Kevin Feige comes out and runs an entire presentation. I was looking forward to seeing James Gunn like on stage for an hour talking about all the stuff they got coming out and blah, blah, blah. I really thought that would have been cool. But again, I think he made the right decision. Stay focused on the movie you're making. And then we'll see what happens from there. All right. Next up, we go to an anonymous viewer who writes, hey, John, am I the only one that really loves the younger X-Men cast? No, I think a lot of people love the younger X-Men cast. First Class and especially Days of Future Past are some of my favorite X-Men movies. Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy are excellent casting in my opinion. Hope they get brought back in Deadpool 3 if it serves the story. Yeah, I mean, look, one of the things that we know is that neither Michael Fassbender nor James McAvoy will be Charles Xavier or Magneto in the MCU. Like, they're not going to be coming and being those for the MCU. Now, an appearance in Deadpool 3, that's certainly possible. That's certainly possible. And I'll be excited to see it. I mean, I love James McAvoy as Magneto. I mean, Ian McKellen is still Magneto. But I love Michael Fassbender as Magneto. I really do. Days of Future Past, one of my favorite. I can't say that I'm as excited. I mean, when you take away James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender, I can't say that I'm really, really huge fans of the younger cast. Look, I really liked X-Men First Class, but a lot of the younger X-Men casting, I mean, didn't quite work for me. Even Game of Thrones girl who played the young Jean, I forget her name. She was married to one of the Jonas brothers for a while. Anybody in the live chat remember her name? From Sophie Turner. Thank you. Haunted Autumn was the first person to put that in there. Like, I really like Sophie Turner. I like her quite a bit. I did not think she was a good fit for Jean. She was certainly good enough to play Jean. I just think she was a good fit. That's all. I didn't think the young Scott or the young Havoc or the young, I just never felt like they really clicked and worked. Now, Michael Fassbender as Magneto, James McAvoy as Charles, absolutely. And Days of Future Past, I think, is one of the best comic book movies ever made. All right. Next up, we've got Dangerous D who writes, have you ever tried an Insta360 X3? That's a video camera, for those of you who don't know. You can do more than 360 images. You can manipulate the image to like a drone flying by, hyperlapse, and so many things. Yeah, listen, I've watched many, many videos on the entire Insta360 family line, and they look like really impressive things. The reason I have never tried one, and I probably never will, is because I have no use for what the Insta360 does, right? I mean, I just don't have any use for it. I don't need 360 images, and I don't need hyperlapses, and I don't need all that kind of stuff. Now, there are people out there who do and do that stuff, and a 360 is a super option for them. But I mean, I use a mirrorless CMOS sensor camera. So I don't have any need for it, unfortunately. So that's why I've never used it, and unfortunately probably never will. But for people who could use that kind of stuff, it looks awesome. Looks absolutely incredible. All right, next up. Dangerous D also writes, have you ever enjoyed a low-budget direct-to-video film back in the day? I mean, really bad with trashy titles like Werewolf vs. Ninja or Wishboner. I mean, I'm sure I did back in the day. I'm sure there were those types of films that I caught, like somebody brought over a VHS or something or a DVD and which I'm sure there were, but obviously nothing that stuck with me. I'm trying to think if there was, I can't think of one that ever stuck with me, to be honest with you, even though I probably watched lots of those as a kid, but none of them ever stuck with me. All right. Next up, the Super Ranger Mud Truck writes, "Hey, John, I just rewatched Superman and Superman 2, and by golly, I forgot how great these films were. What a time to be alive. I forgot how great the effects were for the time and the writing. Wow, spectacular. What's your favorite part / scene from those movies?" I'm going to be honest with you, and some people consider this sacrilegious. I don't think that Superman 1, the first Christopher Reeve one, actually holds up all that well. I'm not the biggest fan of the first Superman movie. I still to this day love Superman 2. Love Superman 2. But that being said, even though like I think the first Superman is a little, I think the nostalgia of the first Superman is greater than the movie itself. That being said, what Superman did, like the advertising tagline of Superman was, "You'll believe a man can fly." Because Superman did kind of what Star Wars did, in that it was considered a huge leap forward for like visual effects in many ways. And I mean, maybe it looks a little cheesy now, like Superman flying in those movies looks a little cheesy now, but at the time there had never been anything like it. Never been anything like it. And it just kind of revolutionized everything. And then Superman 2 comes along. And Superman 2 to me improves on the first Superman in every single way. And the writing and the dialogue and like, care to step outside? I mean, it's just, yeah, they did some weird things in Superman 2. Like what's with the saran wrap S on his chest? "Oh, look out, supervillain. I'm throwing saran wrap at you." Whee! Like I don't know what that was supposed to be. I don't know. But it's absolutely iconic. And then Superman is kind of a dick at the end when he goes back, now that he's Superman again, has the superpowers to challenge that trucker, even though the truckers, it's like, let's be honest here. It's like, I don't know I'm trying to think of somebody, it's like Mike Tyson walking into a kindergarten class and saying, "Hey kid, I'm here to beat you up." That's what it was. Superman going to beat up that trucker. That was kind of a dick move of his, but something felt satisfying as an audience watching him kick that guy's ass. So yeah, there's that. All right. Next up, we've got Full Boil who writes, "Is it weird that I want Hiroyuki Sanada's character in Shogun to survive? His characters have died in movies such as Mortal Kombat, Avengers Endgame, and John Wick 4. He's like the next Sean Bean. Live, Sanada, live." Well, I'm not going to talk about what happens in Shogun at all, but I've seen lots of stuff with Sanada. Although you're right. Recently, a lot of the stuff he's appeared in, John Wick, Mortal Kombat, a lot of stuff he appears in, like even that Wolverine movie, although that was a while ago. But he survives in a lot of things. I wouldn't put him in Sean Bean categories yet. And as far as what happens to Lord Toranaga-sama, stay tuned and find out, my friends. Stay tuned and find out. All right. Next up, we've got an anonymous viewer who writes, "Up in Canada at Cineplex, they're now charging different prices for different movies. We talked about this the other day on the John Campea Show. If they're new or if they're popular, they're more expensive, $1 more, basically just surge pricing, which feels very cheap and annoying. Both Dune 2, Kung Fu Panda 4 are $1 more." Yeah, I'm not going to go into my whole rant and spiel about this, but I honestly encourage all of my fellow Canadian film fans to boycott Cineplex. I wouldn't go to Cineplex. They've just acted, in my opinion, so evil and so anti-consumer and so anti-customer in the last number of years. It's like, you almost can't believe that they get away with it, but they have such a monopoly up there that they obviously know that they can get away with it. They know they can get away with it. And so they do everything they can to get away with it. And I really encourage everybody I know, all my fellow Canadians who are film fans and stuff like that, do your best. It's not always possible because for a lot of people in Canada, Cineplex is the only movie theater you got close to you. Then you have no choice. That's I understand that. Don't worry about it. But for anybody who does have a choice, I highly encourage my fellow Canadian film fans to boycott Cineplex. It's just been years of in my view has been a pathological anti-consumer, anti-customer behaviors and practices because they know they can get away with it because they have such a dominant market position. They're terrible, they're awful, and they used to be my dream movie theater. I used to dream about, once I would leave AMC or once I would finish Movie Talk or whatever, that someday I'm going to move back to Canada and I'm going to do at Cineplex what I did at AMC theaters. That was my dream. And my dreams turned into a nightmare, not real nightmare, but in talking about movie stuff, my dream has turned into a nightmare because they're just vile, in my opinion. They are vile and evil and doing massively anti-consumer practices. And I honestly hope they go under. I hope they go bankrupt. Let me correct that just a little bit. I hope they change their ways. That's what I really hope. I hope they change their ways and become more consumer friendly, as opposed to being the vile dirtbags they've turned into. I hate Cineplex. I hate them. I just think they're a terrible, terrible, terrible movie theater chain. And I hope they either change their ways, and if they don't, I hope they go out of business. It won't happen. They have too much of a dominant monopoly, but that's just how I feel about it. Just how I feel about it. All right. Next up, we've got Chris Biggs, who tipped in $20. Thank you, Chris, for supporting us on that level, man. I appreciate that. And he writes, "Hey, John and crew. I'm hearing from YouTubers like Grace Randolph that David Zaslav only bought Warner Brothers to flip it, that he is just trying to hype the brand just to sell it to someone like Universal in a couple of months. What are your thoughts?" No, that's asinine. Here's the thing, because there's several different reasons why that's a ridiculous thing. Not that it's ridiculous that at some point they may sell. I mean, we've all known from the beginning, it is possible, like AT&T bought Warner Brothers. They didn't buy Warner Brothers just to flip it, but a few years later, they had to sell it. Warner Brothers Discovery may at some point have to be sold. That's a total thing on the table, always have been. But there's a couple of things about this that just don't equate to logic. Okay. Number one, when Discovery kind of merged in with Warner Brothers and all that kind of stuff, David Zaslav, this was a dream of Zaslav's, because Zaslav has waxed poet about, like, he's like a lot of us. He's just a massive movie fan. He grew up with this and that and the other thing. And it's just his passion to be involved with this and all that kind of stuff. But the big thing is that if the point of what they've been doing, if the point of him taking over Warner Brothers has just been to flip it, then he has been doing everything exactly the opposite of what he should be doing to flip it. Because when you look at what he's been doing and what Warner Brothers has been doing, they have not been doing things that would equal a quick turnaround, slight improvement. They have not been doing things that would result in a quick, short-term uptick and quick short-term improvement. That's what you do if you want to flip something. You acquire it, you do something to it that you can do as quickly to it that would give short-term immediate upside that makes it attractive to sell, and then sell it. That and just like flipping houses, that's not a long-term gain. Like you buy the house, and then once you buy the house that you're going to try to flip, the clock is ticking. You renovate it, do what you're going to do to it as fast as you can, and then you sell it. Instead, the decisions that David Zaslav and Discovery have been making with Warner Brothers has clearly been foundational for much, much longer term health, right? And some of those things they need to do for way down the road, better long-term, bigger picture health have actually been detrimental short-term. Like they've done some things that hurt them right now that they do because they believe 3 years from now, 5 years from now, this will put us in it hurts right now, but it'll put us in a better position 3, 4, 5 years from now. That is not what you do if you're trying to flip something. If you're trying to flip something, you do what you can do right now to improve it as much as you can right now, to make it as attractive as possible right now, to lure in potential buyers right now. That's what you do, and that's the opposite of what they've been doing. Now, it may work, it may not work, but to say that, and I've heard a lot of people say it, like I don't think anybody's dumb for looking at this and thinking that, right? It's just that if you really sit down and look at it, the idea that they took over Warner Brothers just to flip it, okay, but do their actions since they bought Warner Brothers back that up or contradict that? And clearly the actions they've taken contradict the idea that they just bought it to flip it. Again, in a year or two, they might be in a position where they have no other choice but to flip it because the things they're trying may not work. And then they sell it. That's fine. But I guarantee you, if they sell it in the short term now, they're going to be selling it for less than what they bought it for. And that's not a flipping strategy. So no, because of the behavior, because of the actual facts that we have seen unfold since they purchased Warner Brothers, that completely contradicts the idea that they bought Warner Brothers specifically so they could flip it. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. If they wanted to do that, that's perfectly legitimate. If they just wanted to buy Warner Brothers, give it some quick value and then sell it off at a profit, nothing wrong with that. That's business, but it's clearly not what they did and clearly not what their goals were. Anyway, thanks for that, man. All right, next up. And again, thanks for supporting us on that level, Chris. Appreciate that. Next up, Mike P. writes, "Hey, John, one of two. Ray Winston has been talking about his time with Marvel recently." By the way, Ray Winston had no time with Marvel. He played one supporting character in one movie. Just be clear about that. Anyway, Ray Winston has been talking about his time with Marvel recently, and he mentioned on a podcast that I listened to that he initially played his role more of a pedo. Remember, he was a villain in the film, his words, which exec said he had to change in reshoots as it was a bit much. If you could give one acting direction note to any other Marvel villain to see what they would do with it, who would it be and what would the change be? Mine would be having Mads Mikkelsen be a little more unhinged or deranged. I disagree with that. Because what's his name in Doctor Strange again? This is not it, but it rhymes with Caecilius, Acilius, Racilius. It's something like that. Guys in the live chat, give me the actual character's name because I'm freezing on what it is. But here's the thing about that character. That character was never meant to be some wild, unhinged madman, right? The whole point of his character in that movie is to be... Oh, people saying I had it right the first time. Caecilius. Oh, I was right. That was the pronunciation. Caecilius. Okay, so Mr. I is syphilis. No, it wasn't syphilis. It was Caecilius. The whole point of that character was supposed to be that he is rational and that his sitting down and actually looking and learning and finding out about stuff, maybe some secrets of the Ancient One, whatever, ultimately led him to saying, no, we got to do this instead. Not to mention that he has to come across logical enough and sane enough that all these people would start to follow him. I think having Mads Mikkelsen's Caecilius come across as just some random, lunatic madman bad guy, I don't think it worked. I don't think it would have worked for that character, to be honest with you. I really liked his character and the way he played it. But again, that's just me. Your opinion is no less and no more valid than mine. I'm just kind of giving my thought on that. But if I had to pick a villain from the MCU that maybe I would give a note to how they should change it. Let me see. Some people will say Ronan the Accuser in Guardians, but I completely disagree. I mean, I get into arguments with people over this. I thought he was a great villain for that movie, so I got no notes for him there. Some people are saying like Gore the God Butcher. The problem is the problem with Gore the God Butcher had nothing to do with the performance and nothing to do with how that Christian Bale decided to portray the character. It was, they just simply didn't use, like Gore the God Butcher is a character with deep, rich, huge story and narrative of his own. And they used him in such a way that he was just honestly a villain of the week. He was the villain of the movie. And so the mistake wasn't the actor. I have no notes for Christian Bale for how he played it. I have no problem with that at all. I just have, again, notes on how they wrote the character, how little they used the character, how much they didn't go into the stuff that has nothing to do with how the actor played it. Trying to think. It's a really good question, Anonymous. I don't have one off the top of my head, but it's one I'll think about. It's one I'll think. It's a really good topic. All right. Next up, we go to Koa, who writes, I assume Legendary is hearing the franchise/universe machine ramping up for Dune, right? I expect more Dune movies in the future. Yeah, well, we're going to have Dune Messiah. That's going to come. But I don't know. First of all, I think it's a mistake that they're doing Dune Messiah. I think it's a very fan unfriendly kind of thing, unless Denis Villeneuve does some major changes to it, which he might. He made some major changes for Dune 2. Maybe he'll do some major changes here. But remember, Denis also said that Dune Messiah is going to be his last one. Like the third Dune film is the last one he's going to do. He's not going to do any more after that. And the thing is, in the novels, like the books get more and more wacky. Like the books get more and more wacky as they go. And they become more and more unfriendly to, I think, to a live action interpretation. So I don't know. And by the way, it's not like Dune is making $1 billion a film. Like it's Dune 2 is going to be a big hit. It already is a big hit, but I don't think it's not going to get the $1 billion mark. It's just not that kind of a popcorn movie. But I don't know. I think they'll do the third one. I think they're going to do the Bene Gesserit series, and then I think it's going to be over. I'm guessing. I could be wrong. I don't know that for a fact. That's just me as a fan guessing, but we'll find out. All right. Next up, we've got, where are we at here? We are at Twilight Boy, who writes, love you, John, but I think you're 100% wrong that audiences won't accept Dune Messiah. We were just talking about this. Won't accept Dune Messiah. Dune 2 made Paul's heel turn significantly more pronounced than the book, and I think the audience will see the terrible things he will be responsible for in it coming. Okay, look. What will or will not happen in Dune Messiah, neither of us knows, right? I mean, we got some ideas because of the books, but we don't know what Denis is going to do, right? We just don't. I completely disagree with you when you say Paul's heel turn was really pronounced in Dune 2. No, it wasn't. You survey 1,000 moviegoers coming out of the movie theater of Dune 2 and ask them if Paul ended the movie as a villain. 999 of them are going to say no. He avenged the death of his father. He saved the Fremen. He unseated a corrupt and evil emperor. That's how they're going to see it. You can disagree all you want, but you survey 1,000 moviegoers coming out of the theater and say, did Paul Atreides end the film as a villain? No. They're going to see that he made hard choice and everything, but he saved his people. He freed Arrakis. He avenged the death of his father. He killed the bad guy in Feyrautha. They're going to say he did all that kind of stuff. So you can say, my film loving brother, you can say that, oh, no, the stuff that's going to happen in Dune Messiah, no, that's not going to catch. The audience is totally prepared for it. No, they're not. No, they are not. Not at all. And by the way, it's totally reasonable that the average film fan who goes and see Dune 2, of course they're going to kind of think Paul just ends really heroically. You know, he saves the girl, he saves his people, he saves his family, he avenges the death of his father, he kills the one big bad guy in Vladimir Harkonnen, he kills the upcoming bad guy, the psychopath Feyrautha, Baron Harkonnen, kills him. He unseats the emperor who plotted the death of his entire family and house, and the Fremen are super excited and freed. The average film goer going to see that movie is seeing this is a traditional big win for the hero at the end. It in no way is preparing people for what comes in Dune Messiah. Now, somebody else just said, oh, I missed it. I want to bring it up on screen if I can find it again. Okay. No, that's not it. Here it is. Captain Wingsu is saying, disagree. They clearly foreshadowed that it's not going to end well. I'm not going to say listen, I don't disagree that they foreshadowed some stuff. Sure. Right. I mean, Paul himself talks about, like, if I do what I need to do to save the Fremen and to save Arrakis, it's going to lead to a holy war. It's going to be this, and his visions, and even his mother at the end talking to the baby inside, the Anya Taylor-Joy, the little baby Anya Taylor-Joy saying, the holy war has begun, right? Foreshadowing? Absolutely. Absolutely. There's some foreshadowing there. But I will bet $1,000 on this, man. You survey 1,000 non-book reading, average moviegoers coming out and say, hey, did Paul Atreides end the movie heroically as a hero? Like over 990 of them will say, yeah, because he does all the things the traditional hero does at the end of a film. Save the world, dispel the bad guys, all that stuff. I don't think the average film goer is remotely prepared for what's coming in Dune Messiah. Again, this is all, it all depends on what Denis decides to do, right? Because he makes a ton of changes from the first Dune book in Dune 2. We'll see what kind of changes he makes moving forward. We'll find out, Twilight Boy. That's the great thing about the movies. We get to just theorize and debate, and then we'll see. Right? Ultimately, we'll see what happens there, man. All right, thanks for sharing your thoughts, Twilight Boy. I appreciate it. Next up. Gregor writes, movie math, paying $25 a month for A-list. The New York City 70mm IMAX is $28 a ticket. So I could get up to 12 tickets a month on A-list, a $336 value. In that case, would the studio still get half of the $336, or does the theater cover the difference affect the box office? All right. So here's how it works. All right. This is how it has been defined to me by people at the movie theaters. And I'm going to see if I can bring up give me a moment. I'm going to see if I can bring up Campea Classroom here. I'm not totally sure that I can, but let me see if I can bring up the Campea Classroom. Super chat. Okay. Campea Classroom. Look at that. I can bring it up. All right. Give me a moment to get this set up. So this question comes up a lot. A-list, economics. All right. How do movie theaters get their money, and how do they determine box office when people use A-list and all that kind of stuff? Okay. Let's jump into it, shall we? Let's start with this. Maybe if I actually typed on this. National ticket average price. Okay. So the starting foundation of this is the national ticket average price. Now, I think it's a little bit higher now, but not too long ago, I think they said the national average price, when you take into consideration big format, small movie theater, Friday night, Tuesday afternoon matinees, when you actually take all of it and then average it out. Remember, this was a couple of years ago, so it's probably higher now, but just for the sake of our discussion, let's for argument's sake say that the average ticket price to a movie in America is $11. Obviously, some are going to be much more expensive. Some midweek afternoon ones are going to be cheaper. But let's just for the sake of the discussion right now, let's say that the national ticket average price is $11. All right. Now, of that ticket price, theaters remit about 2/3. To the system. All right. You know what? Just for the sake of this discussion, just so the math is going to be easier, let's change the national ticket average price to $10. Okay. So movie theaters, when you buy a movie ticket for $10, they have to give back 2/3. All right. And that, by the way, I'm oversimplifying this, but it basically works out to about 2/3. So in this case, let's say for argument's sake, we're just going to round it out to say $7. $7 has to go back to the film distributors, into the studio system, all that kind of stuff, right? Okay. So an average movie ticket gets bought. For the sake of the discussion, we're going to say that's $10. The theaters then have to remit or give back 2/3 of that. We're just rounding up the numbers and saying $7. They send $7 back to the film exhibitors and the studio system. Okay. Great. So how does AMC A-List fit into this? And by the way, not just AMC A-List, but also like other things like this. Well, here's how it works. Let's say I use my AMC A-List to buy a ticket tonight to go and see Kung Fu Panda 4. Okay. And it cost me $14 for Kung Fu Panda 4. Okay. What happens is AMC treats, now I remember I use my AMC A-List for this. Using AMC A-List, I get a $14 ticket to go see Kung Fu Panda 4. Of course, I don't pay anything for it because I'm using my AMC A-List. But so I use my AMC A-List to get a $14 Kung Fu Panda 4 ticket. What happens is AMC treats that as a national average ticket price. We'll say NATP as national average ticket price, ticket sale. Or in other words, $10 for the sake of our discussion, right? $10. Because we already said that. Remember, we said that right at the beginning. If for the sake of this discussion, we're saying the national average price is $10, then when I use A-List to buy a movie ticket, even if it's a $14 showing, AMC counts it in its accounting as a ticket sale at the cost of the national average movie ticket. In the case of our example, that's $10. So what they then must do is remit $7 to the studio system. So I use A-List to go see Kung Fu Panda. AMC counts it as a national ticket average price of $10. And if it was a regular $10 ticket sale, they would have to give 2/3 of that. For rounding up math, we're calling that $7. And they have to send $7 back out. So every time, now if I use, this means, if I use AMC A-List 10 times this month, it costs AMC, because $7 times 10, $70. It costs AMC $70 that they have to send back to the distributors and back into the theater system, or back into the movie studio system. So even though they get $25 this month from me for paying my AMC A-list dues, if I use that 10 times this month, they actually got to send $70 to the studios. So they're losing almost $50. AMC's losing almost $50. So then you might be thinking, wow, then AMC must really not want you to use your A-list that much. Well, actually, that's not true. Because what then happens is there's another bit of revenue. And that's candy stand. The candy stand. You see, AMC is okay with sending $7, again, just for the sake of our numbers. AMC is okay with sending $7 every time I use my A-list to the studio system. They're fine with that. You know why? Because they know this little piggy is probably going to spend more than $7 when I go at the concession stand. This idiot is probably going to spend $17 on a large popcorn, a large drink, and probably a box of M&Ms that me and Ann will split. So yeah, AMC is losing money to the studio system every time I use my A-list, but then they're making more money off me just by me coming in the doors and buying soda, buying popcorn, buying a hot dog, buying nachos, buying chicken strips, like whatever it is I'm going to get. So AMC's okay losing money on me to the studios because they know they're going to make money on me at the candy stand. And remember, movie theaters ultimately are not in the movie business. They're in the snack business. I remember a theater owner said that at CinemaCon a bunch of years ago. That really stood out to me, but it's true. Movie theaters ultimately are not in the movie business. The movies are just the catnip. They're the candy in the trunk. They're the thing used to lure us into their facilities, where the movie theaters then do their actual business, which is the snack business. Movie theaters make a huge chunk, far more of a movie theater's money comes from the concession stand than comes from buying a movie ticket, because most of the movie ticket goes back to the studio system. So how do they equate the box office when I use my AMC A-list? They account the box office as if I bought a national average ticket price. Maybe that's $12. Maybe that for the sake of our example, it's $10. So when I use my AMC A-list tonight to go see Kung Fu Panda 4, it counts as $10 towards the box office. If the national average is $12 a ticket, then it counts as $12 to the box office. And again, AMC is perfectly fine losing money on it because they know they're going to gain it back when I use the concession stand. So yeah, there's that. Sorry, I went on way too long on that. My apologies to everybody. I went on really, really long on that, but this is a question that gets brought up a lot. This question gets brought up a lot. And yeah. And by the way, Rock'em Sock'em, that's not true. I keep hearing people saying numbers like 45, theaters keep 45 or 50%. That's not true. I can simply tell, remember, I worked with AMC theaters for many years. And what the executives there made pretty clear to me, because it's a rotating scale depending how long a movie's been in theaters. But when it really comes down to it, it basically works out to 1/3. Not this 50% number you see a lot of people throwing around, not 45%. Like AMC was pretty clear with me that when it's all shakes out, the movie theaters keep about 1/3. Keeps about 1/3. So anyway, that's how the economics of these movie memberships work with A-list, with Regal Unlimited, stuff like that. It's a great question. Again, I'm sorry I spent so long on that answer, but it's a question that comes up a lot, so I thought I would kind of lay it out. Anyway, and by the way, I oversimplified it. There are some details in there as well that I left out, but I just, for the sake of the discussion. Anyway, okay. Next up. And by the way, some people say, well, then how is this good for the studios if, like, instead of a $14 Kung Fu Panda ticket, it only counts as a $10? It's good for the studios because a lot of people like me are going to go to more movies than usual. Because if you're a studio, what would you rather have? Would you rather have me go to 2 movies this month at $15 a ticket, thus generating $30? Okay. Would you rather have me, a moviegoer, go to the theater twice a month at $15 a ticket, generating $30, or would you rather have me as a moviegoer going to the movie theater 5 times this month at $10 a ticket, generating $50 in ticket revenue? What would you rather have as a movie theater, or as a movie studio, I should say? What would you rather have me do? So, because me owning A-list means most people who have an A-list, they go to more movies than they would have if they didn't have A-list. And even though the studios get shortchanged on the ticket price, because maybe they get the national average, but maybe I'm going to a $20 IMAX screening, movie theaters or movie studios are okay with that because they know I'm going to more movies than I normally would have. So it works out for everybody. It's a really good system for everybody. All right. Let's keep going here. Dangerous D writes, I watched a doc Comic-Con on Tubi, and into a few minutes, John Schnepp was interviewed. That was eerie because I just saw your show and you answered a query about Schnepp. That's an old one. Yeah, I think that existed before. If I'm thinking of the same documentary, I think that documentary existed before I even met Schnepp. Which is kind of funny, but yeah, you'll actually see Schnepp pop up on a lot of those like pop cultural documentaries here and there. He was in quite a few of them actually. All right. Michael Crossan writes, greetings from Belfast. Nice. New trailer for the Bon Jovi documentary recently dropped. I haven't seen it yet. Hitting Disney Plus in April. I'll be watching that for sure. They're my all-time favorite band. They're great. I love Bon Jovi. Thoughts on the trailer? Do you have a favorite Bon Jovi song? I listen to you guys every day on my commute to work. Thank you so much for that, Michael. I absolutely have a favorite Bon Jovi song. It's all the same. Only the names are changed. Yeah, Dead or Alive, man. That's Dead or Alive has been it's one of my all-time favorite songs. Dead or Alive is absolutely one of my all-time favorite songs. Bad Medicine is fantastic. I mean, they've got 15 songs that are super great. But you know what? One of my favorite Bon Jovi things ever. Do any of you guys remember? I don't think he's popular anymore, but do any of you guys remember Triumph the Insult Comic Dog? Let me see if I can find a picture of him. I'm not sure if you guys remember. Triumph the Insult Comic Dog. Many of you, I'm sure, never saw Triumph the Insult Comic Dog, but he was awesomely funny. Awesomely funny. Let me see if I can bring this up on screen. This is Triumph the Insult Comic Dog. And I think he got started on Conan. He's basically exactly what it was. He was a puppet dog that would just brutally insult people. And he went from Conan O'Brien to starting doing his own stuff, I think. But anyway, one of my favorite things ever was Triumph the Insult Comic Dog went to a Bon Jovi concert and interviewed people in line for Bon Jovi, just making fun of them terribly. And then he actually talked to Bon Jovi, and he's talking to John Bon Jovi, and he goes, now you've been getting more into acting. Yes, more into acting. Do you have anything coming up? And John Bon Jovi's like, well, actually, yes, I've got a movie coming out. And remember, this is years ago. I've got a movie coming up where I'm going to be playing a vampire. And Triumph the Insult Comic Dog, I'll never forget this line, goes, a vampire. At last, you're finally playing a role that requires you to suck. It was so good. And then he did one where he was in line at a Star Wars movie. Yes, look at all the virgin nerds. Anyway, he was great. Anyway, how did I get on that whole spiel? Oh yeah, somebody asked about Bon Jovi. Yeah, Bon Jovi's great. I'll be watching that documentary, and my favorite Bon Jovi song is Dead or Alive. Still one of my favorite songs today, I think. It's awesome. All right. Next up, we've got Brian O'Connor writes, hey, John, in Dune, what do the other houses think happened to Duke Leto? I imagine they were all notified about Leto taking over Arrakis, right? Even if it was in secret, wouldn't Leto himself or someone have sent announcements about it? Oh, yeah, look, they totally knew about it. But remember, it's made clear in Dune that the Harkonnen and the Atreides have been fighting each other for centuries, right? Remember what Paul says in Dune Part 2, he goes, you've been fighting the Harkonnens for decades. My family's been fighting them for centuries, right? So what the Great Houses probably thinks happened was that they just think, look, the Harkonnen just went and attacked. They've been at war with each other for centuries, and they probably thought, what the Emperor didn't want the Great Houses to find out was that the Emperor aided the Harkonnens and arranged for them to wipe out the Atreides. And that is something that they say in the movie would have been considered a great and serious crime. And the Great Houses probably would have risen up against the Emperor and dethroned it. Because if he can do that to one of the houses, what's to stop the Emperor from doing that to any of the houses, right? So, yeah, the other houses knew that the Atreides took over Arrakis. And then when the Harkonnen took it back, they probably just thought, well, listen, this is house-on-house violence. Like, these two houses been at war with each other for centuries. It sucks, but this is house-on-house violence. What they didn't know, and what the Emperor didn't want them to find out, was that the Emperor was actually behind it. And that is something that would have been considered a big no-no. All right, next up. We've got James L.H. who writes, John, 1 of 3. I grew up with the original Star Wars, still my favorite all time. This year is the 25th anniversary of the prequels. I look back and remember watching the trailer many times. Oh, the trailer was iconic. Might be the greatest movie trailer of all time, The Phantom Menace. Waiting ages to download because internet was different in 1999. I remember the news, people camping outside of cinemas. I remember the feeling I had going to my first new Star Wars film. A feeling I can't describe exactly, but it's something I've not really felt since. Despite all the greatest films I've seen, I remember unreservedly defending Phantom Menace to any naysayers, despite accepting now that I knew inside then, no, this is not a good film. In my defense, it was the first new Star Wars film in cinema since 1983. The next 25th, I'll look forward to 2026 for Lord of the Rings. How do you look back, John? Yeah, listen, I have a movie that I made, a little documentary project I made called Movie Trailers, A Love Story. And an entire chapter in my documentary is dedicated to the Phantom Menace trailer. It changed everything. Like that Phantom Menace trailer changed everything. It changed the way trailers were looked at. It changed the way trailers got delivered to people. It changed everything. Like, it's incredible, that trailer and what it did. But I was like you. When I first came out of Phantom Menace, I was like, that was great. And then I went to go see it again. And I'm like, that was really good. And then I saw it again. And I was like, that was good. And then I saw it again. I was like, I guess it's okay. And then the next time it was like, yeah, it's not very good, but it's still great to see lightsaber fights. And then I saw Phantom Menace in theaters like 17 times. I'm not exaggerating. No exaggeration. It was like something around the neighborhood of 17 times. And yeah, then I was like, no, this was just sucks. This movie is just horrible. But I was like you. At first, I kind of defended it to myself and everything like that. But it was really, really bad. But listen, that trailer, though, it changed everything. It was the first movie I ever literally camped out, like in a tent in a line with people to get tickets to something. It was a moment in the history of film fandom. That movie coming out was a moment in the history of, forget about how it turned out. That movie just coming and then coming out and its trailer and all that kind of stuff was a pinnacle moment in fan history, in movie fan history. It really is. All right. Thanks for that, James LH. Next up, Amin writes, 1 of 2. I usually wait until I've had a chance to watch the Oscar films before putting together my top 10 list. So here is mine. Number 1, Spider-Verse. Number 2, Oppenheimer. Number 3, Mission Impossible. Number 4, The Creator. Number 5, Guardians 3. Number 6, American Fiction. Number 7, The Holdovers. This is a really good list so far, I mean. Number 8, Anatomy of a Fall. Number 9, Elemental. I love that movie. Number 10, Air. Honorable mentions to Poor Things and Flower Moon. The Oscar films this year were particularly strong. Lots of variety. Just couldn't get through Maestro. The rest were either great or good. You know what? I'm very in line with what you're just saying there, Amin. This was an amazing year in film. I mean, yeah, for fans of genre stuff like me, wasn't the best year for comic book movies and some other things, but as a film fan, amazing year. I'm also with you that the one film that got a lot of laurels that I didn't really love is Maestro, a brilliantly made movie. Absolutely. Listen, Bradley Cooper did a really good job putting that movie together. He really did. But I don't think it's a top 10 film of the year. I kind of have my issues with it. Again, I like it. Like in a thumbs up or a thumbs down world, I am a thumbs up person for Maestro. I think it's a very well put together movie. I just didn't, you know, some people absolutely loved it. Like Haunted Om saying, I loved Maestro. I have it at my number 2 for 2023. And I think you're not alone. I don't think you're alone in that, my friend. But yeah, for me, yeah, it lacks something. It lacks something, but that's just me. But yeah, overall, super strong year for film. All right, Alan Renshaw writes, hey, John, I was saddened by the loss of Akira Toriyama. I love the Dragon Ball series and Enkeyed, the recent Dragon Ball superhero movie. I think you probably meant to say enjoyed. I'm going to guess you meant to say enjoyed the recent superhero movie. The anime community lost a great creator. What are your thoughts on his passing? Look, do you want me to say what you're supposed to say right now, or do you want me to give an honest answer? Like, honestly, guys in live chat, do you want me to say what you're supposed to say right now, or do you want me to give an honest answer to that question? Nobody wants. Okay. People are saying honest. Okay. Here's my honest answer. It doesn't mean anything to me because I am not a Dragon Ball Z fan. I've had many, and so not to dismiss the tragic passing. Listen, this guy created something that was beloved by millions. How many people are ever going to be able to say that in their lifetime? That they created something that was beloved by millions. That's amazing. It's so amazing that he was able to. I mean, it's not something that I liked. I quite frankly, I'm not a fan of Dragon Ball Z. But I don't disparage anybody else who is. I mean, if you like Dragon Ball Z, that's awesome. It's just never been for me. So I have no emotional attachment to Dragon Ball Z. Thus, I have no emotional resonance with the passing of its creator. But that being said, what he did and made is something few people will ever be able to say that they did. They made something that became passionately beloved by a lot of people. And that's something I'll probably never be able to say. That's probably something most of you guys will never be able to say. It's an incredible thing. And I feel really bad for those fans, those legions of fans, and that they have lost this guy. And I feel bad. But you know, if you're asking me my thoughts on his passing, well, it's a dude who died young, and that's always tragic. I mean, he wasn't even 70 from what I understand. So yeah, but so yeah, what he accomplished was incredible. Something we'll never be able to say we can do. But it honestly didn't mean that much to me because I never was a fan of this stuff. But that's just me. All right. Next up, we've got, maybe if I bring up the question, Stubble McShave writes, hot take. I recently watched The Truman Show. In my opinion, it was a better movie than both Saving Private Ryan and Shakespeare in Love. That's an opinion. Everyone just debates whether Ryan or Shakespeare should have won the best picture, but for me, Truman Show should have won. Well, listen, it's not that hot of a take because a lot of people love The Truman Show, right? The Truman Show is a beloved movie, and it's wonderful. It's a terrific film. Starring good Canadian kid Jim Carrey. It's an absolutely marvelous film. Most people love it. I disagree that it was good as Shakespeare in Love or Saving Private Ryan. I think those were the two worthy ones to win Best Picture that year. It went to Shakespeare in Love. But I listen, that's not to take away from how good I thought The Truman Show was. The Truman Show was incredible. And if you liked it more, than those other two, that's great. I mean, that's the whole point of art. That's the whole point of film. I personally thought those other two were better than Truman Show, but all three of them are spectacular. Like, they're all really, really, really great films for sure. All right. Guys, with that down, we're now going to move over and start taking your live questions. Those of you who are watching live, like all those questions were the ones people sent into the tip link, but we're now going to take your live questions. A bunch of you guys fired in. By the way, the super chats are now closed. I know some people were wondering why they haven't been able to send in a super chat because we have turned it off. But we got a lot of questions lined up. We're going to get to those. But before we do, we're going to take a quick second and thank the sponsor of today's video, our friends at Factor. We want to take a second and thank a sponsor of today's video, Factor. You know, guys, some days it's great to prepare your own meal, but some days it's great to have wonderful, delicious meals already ready to go. Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals makes eating better every day easy. Wherever tomorrow takes you, be ready with pre-prepared, chef-crafted, and dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. You'll have over 35 different options a week to choose from, including keto, calorie smart, vegan, veggie, and more. And there's even more to enjoy with over 55 nutrition-packed add-ons that help make your weekly meal planning even more delicious. So what are you waiting for? Get started today and have a feel-good week of meals ready to go. They've got snacks, smoothies, and more. Discover a wide variety of easy options for the entire day, like breakfast, midday bites, and more. And guys, you get to save. We've done the math. Factor is less expensive than takeout, and every meal is dietitian approved to be nutritious and delicious. So guys, head to factormeals.com/Campea50 and use the code Campea50 to get 50% off. That's code Campea50 at factormeals.com/Campea50 to get 50% off. And thank you to our friends at Factor for sponsoring today's episode. All right, guys, with that down, let's get over to the live questions you guys have been sending here, shall we? And we're going to start things up with who's first. Elvis C. writes, I know season 1 is not the best, but season 2 and season 3, some episodes are Andor-esque episodes, more mature and dark. I really suggest you watch The Bad Batch. Fuck no, I'm not going to watch The Bad Batch. It sucked. The writing and the Crosshair arc is great. Look, here's the thing. If you like Bad Batch, that's great. I am thrilled for you. I'm not going to try to talk you out of loving it. I want people to love everything they watch. And if you watch Bad Batch and you liked it, that is awesome. I'm thrilled for you. But to me, it's a bag of shit. And that's okay. That's okay. I'm allowed to not like some things you like. You're allowed to not like things that I like. That's great, right? But I tried Bad Batch. And it's not my job to keep trying something until I eventually like it. That's like somebody kicking you in the balls and saying, oh, you didn't like it? Well, let me do it again. Maybe you'll like it a little bit more the second time. Oh, you still didn't like it? You know what? You just stick with it. Just stick with it. Eventually, you'll love it. You're going to love the kick to the balls. Trust me. Just hang in there. At some point, you're going to go, you know, maybe being kicked in the balls is good for some people, but it's not good for me. And watching Bad Batch to me was like being kicked in the balls. I thought it was horrible. Now, again, that doesn't mean that other people can't love it, that other people can't find appreciation in it, and as a piece of art that other people can't find the appeal in it. Absolutely. And I'm not downplaying that at all. I'm just saying, for me, I gave Bad Batch a chance. And I'm not going to waste any more of my time on it. I have lots of other shows that I am excited about and that I do enjoy that I'm having a hard time keeping up with. I'm not going to waste it so I can go back and be kicked in the balls again. But John, this time you get kicked in the balls, I think you're going to really dig it. No, I'm pretty sure I'm not. Pretty sure I'm not. Again, that's just me. It's not for me. Just like I'm sure there are things that I like that aren't for you, and that's totally okay. But I am not giving Bad Batch one more moment of my time. I gave it a shot, did not work for me, so I've moved on from it. But I'm glad you like it. I'm super thrilled that you like it. All right. Next up, we've got... That was the wrong button. There we go. That was Elvis C. Thanks, Elvis, for sharing your perspective on it, though, man. Ray from State Farm writes, 1 of 2. I just watched... Oh dear, sorry, hold on a second. My wife just texted me. She said she made something for me. Now I got to watch and see what it is. Oh my goodness. Oh, that's awesome. Hold on a second. I'm on air right now, but that is awesome. I'm totally going to use that. Okay, so just some context here. We have a new sponsor. We have another new sponsor coming on next week. And my wife, Ann, just made a video using the thing our sponsor sent us. And it's really cool with the way she did that. And but I can't show it to you right now. I can't show it to you right now because you don't know who the sponsor is. But it's really cool. She just made something. My wife is so creative. Anyway, okay, back over to it. Where were we at? Oh yeah, I just watched Mads Mikkelsen-led Danish movie from 2020 called Another Round. It's about 4 school teachers who consume alcohol on a daily basis to see how it affects their social lives. Mads gives an incredible performance in it. Highly recommended. If it's the movie I'm thinking of, and it sounds like the movie I'm thinking of, I could be wrong about this, but if it's the movie I'm thinking of, I heard remarkable things about it. I heard absolutely remarkable things about it. Mads Mikkelsen is such a great actor. I mean, I really liked him as Caecilius in Doctor Strange, but I really lament now that he played Caecilius because, man, how good of a Doctor Doom would Mads Mikkelsen be? How good of a Doctor Doom would Mads Mikkelsen be? It just been, he would have been so good in that. But he's great in everything, man. Like just absolutely everything. All right. E Young 98 writes, fan cast, Austin Butler equals MCU Silver Surfer thoughts. I listen, I'll be honest, I'm not big into X actor in X role kind of things. Austin Butler, look, all I care about in casting comic book characters is get a great actor. If you get a great actor, you're probably doing pretty good. And Austin Butler's a great actor, so I'd be down for that just because he's a really good actor. All right, next up. Jared writes, one of two. Hey, John, 100% agreed with you about the whole Batman killing thing. However, do you think there's an argument that could be made about Batman's moral code adding great drama? The idea that would be easier for him to kill than to spare. Well, I mentioned that on the show today, on the John Campea Show today. I believe if you're doing live action, there's just no getting around. If Batman does the types of things he does, sometimes people are going to die. And the only reason they don't in the comics is because the writers cheat. The writers cheat and say, well, just write that they just don't die. But Batman does things that would naturally just lead to some people dying. But and that's why the Warner Brothers executives said to Zack Snyder, just don't put Batman in a situation where he'd have to make a decision like that. Well, that's cheating. Anyway, but what I said on the show today was that I would be fascinated. I think I said this on the show today. If I didn't say it, I thought it. It would be fascinating to see them make a movie where Batman has that code, but inevitably, because he is as violent as he is, somebody, and maybe unintentionally, but somebody ends up dying at his hands because he's so violent. And then what does that do to him? What's the repercussions of that? I would be very interested in seeing something like that. I think that would be really fascinating, to be honest. All right. Next up, E Young 98 writes, what Oscar award would Dune 2 have the best? What Oscar award would Dune 2 have best open for? Well, anyway, take out the word open. I'm going to say best picture. I mean, it's going to win best picture. I have a very, very hard time imagining anything else coming out this year that's going to be better than Dune 2. So I'll just say best picture. No. I see what you're saying. I am saying now, what Oscar awards would Dune 2 have beat Oppenheimer for? All of them. All of them. Best picture, best director, best cinematography. I mean, I don't think Timothée Chalamet would have beaten Cillian Murphy. So I think Cillian Murphy still wins best actor this year, but almost everything else, Dune 2 would win. All right, let's see here. Abe 10 Alpha writes, Lord of the Rings received only one Oscar nomination for acting in the entire trilogy. That was Ian McKellen in the first one. Do you think Dune 2 will receive acting nominations? If so, who? I mean, it's very, very hard to say this early in the year because, like, just look at the best acting categories this year. They're stacked, right? They're stacked. It's easier for me to predict that Dune 2 will win Best Picture than it is to predict who's going to get acting nominations because, man, it's stacked. I would say the ones with the best chances are Javier Bardem will probably get a Best Supporting Actor nomination. I think there's also a good chance that Austin Butler gets a Best Supporting Actor nomination. I think there is a chance that Timothée Chalamet gets a Best Actor nomination. I think there's a chance that Rebecca Ferguson gets a Best Supporting Actress nomination. So those are the ones. But it is weird when you think about Lord of the Rings, right? Especially with Return of the King winning more Academy Awards than any other film in history. I mean, only 2 others won the same amount. No film has ever won more Academy Awards than Lord of the Rings, Return of the King has, but none of them were acting awards. It's really weird when you think about it that way, right? All right. Next up, we've got Christopher Brickner who writes, R.I.P. Dragon Ball creator Akira Toriyama. No matter your thoughts on Dragon Ball, his work has left a huge impact on people everywhere. Well, that's exactly what I said earlier, right? It's like, yeah, I didn't like Dragon Ball Z. And so I have no emotional connection to it whatsoever. Nothing at all. So the passing of the creator of something that I don't really like doesn't mean a lot to me emotionally. But whether you like it or not, Dragon Ball was a huge success. It was a huge influence, had a big fandom of people who passionately loved it. And very few people in their lifetimes will ever be able to say they're going to be able to leave behind a legacy like that. Gene Roddenberry, George Lucas, J.R.R. Tolkien, J.K. Rowling, and this guy's going to be one of those. I mean, absolutely, 100%. All right. Next up, Jared writes, also, chances that you could do a part 2 of open spoilers for Dune. I get it that you wouldn't want to. I'm just sorry I missed your last one. Thanks. No, I don't think I can do another one. Really, the best thing to do is to go back and watch it, but we kind of, in like 2.5 to 3 hours, I think we covered just about everything. I think we covered just about everything that can be covered in it. So I would recommend going back and checking that again. Normally, the only reason we'll do a part 2 or a part 3 of an open spoiler discussion is when too many questions came in for us to get to. You know, like I was doing it 3.5 hours and my voice was dying. So we had to stop. And then maybe a day or two later, we'd do a part 2 where we would answer the rest of the questions. But we got through all the ones that came in for Dune 2. So I don't think we'll do a second one though, but I'll look forward to doing one for Dune 3. All right. Next up, Kyle Schneider writes, Imaginary has a 30% on Rotten Tomatoes. Oh, that's the new horror film. Do you have any plans to see it? I do. I am going to go see it. Hopefully Wolfman is good because Blumhouse has been struggling lately. Well, look, here's the reality about Blumhouse. Blumhouse, it's not just one-dimensional. Yes, Blumhouse has a tendency to make a hit film for pocket change. Like they'll make like The Invisible Man. They moved, if I'm not mistaken, they made The Invisible Man starring Elizabeth Moss for $8 million. Right? For like $8 million, they made that movie. And it made like 40 or 50 or $60 million. Like it's great. They made like 10 times its budget. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was something like that. And they make a bunch of movies that are like that. But for every one of those, they also have one that does not, like becomes very forgettable, comes out, disappears, and then goes away. And yeah, it's just, so that's always been the case, right? They make 2 or 3 that don't make any noise, that don't have any, that don't have no success, but then they do one that covers the cost of all of those, right? And it's a system that really works for them and really does. And I like their movies. And I am curious about Imaginary. I think it's an interesting looking trailer. I'm sad to hear that's only got a 30%, but I plan on checking it out anyway. All right, next up, we've got Jesse Price, who writes, "Hey John, I just got out of seeing Kung Fu Panda 4. It wasn't as good as the first two films, but there were some good laughs." I mean, listen, that's the thing. When you've got like really, really good movies, like say Kung Fu Panda 1 and 2, I don't need the new one to be as good as those, because those are I really enjoy those films. There's a lot, but if they're even like 70% as good, I'm okay with it. I just hope it's better than Kung Fu Panda 3. That's all. Just be better than Kung Fu Panda 3, and I'll be fine. But yeah, I don't need it to be as good as the first two. So, but I'm hearing really good things about it, to be honest. And again, Ann and I were gonna go see it last night, but I'm Canadian. I had a Canadian hockey team in town last night. The Ottawa Senators were in town playing the LA Kings. So, and I decided to go to the hockey game instead. So, but I'll get around to watching Kung Fu Panda 4. I'm looking forward to watching it. All right. Next up, Kyle Schneider writes, new clip released for Ghostbusters where one of the characters says, "I have a ghost to bust. I hope the movie is good, but that line made me cringe." I'm not going to lie to you guys. I have not loved the marketing campaign for this movie so far. I haven't. And I say that as somebody who, capital L, loved Ghostbusters Afterlife. Directed by a good Canadian kid, by the way, who is not directing this one. A lot of people forget that. The director of Ghostbusters Afterlife, Jason Reitman, is not directing this one. He's a producer on it, but he's not directing this one. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of people look at me funny, but I don't think the trailers have been great. I'm just being honest. I loved the last one, but I do not think the marketing for this one has been good. The trailers and the clips I've seen have done nothing to get me more excited for the movie. And yeah. And I have not seen this clip, but that sounds cringy. That sounds cringy. But hey, listen, I've seen lots of movies that I thought the trailers were bad, where the movie itself actually ended up being really good. So hopefully that'll be the case here. Okay, next up, we've got Raymond Verada, who writes, I just realized, hold on a second. I just realized most of your fans are like Ray. I'm not quite sure what that means. All right, Christopher Brickner writes, I wish more classic Star Wars games like Rogue Squadron, Battle for Naboo, Bounty Hunter were on modern consoles, not remaster, but just to buy and play. I'll tell you what, aside from World of Warcraft, which is probably my all-time favorite game back in its day, I spent ungodly amounts of hours of my life playing World of Warcraft. But besides that, and Baldur's Gate 3 might be the best game I've ever played. Like, I think that might actually be the best video game I've ever played. But aside from that, before playing World of Warcraft, my favorite games were X-Wing and TIE Fighter. X-Wing and TIE Fighter were both amazing games. And they kind of did a new version of TIE Fighter or a new version of X-Wing just recently. But I mean, if they could just take those old TIE Fighter and X-Wing games and just remaster them and redo them modern, I would probably never leave my house. So yeah, that and Baldur's Gate 3 is so good. One game of the year, totally deserved it. If you guys haven't tried playing Baldur's Gate, totally play Baldur's Gate. It's so good. All right. Next up, we got Jason Weeby, who writes, Hey, John, have you seen the movie Devotion? Oh, yeah, with one of the Jonas brothers in that. It's a movie based off the true story of Jesse Brown starring Jonathan Majors. I actually liked it. Yeah, I did too. It's got Jonathan Majors and what's the name of the one Jonas brother? Joe Jonas, the one who was married to Sophie Turner. He was in it too. They had a really good song in it as well. Anyway, yeah, it's a nice little movie. I didn't think it was like fantastic. Like the previews for it looked like it could be kind of an Oscar contender. It wasn't that good, but I thought it was quite good. And the performances in it were really great. Another strong Jonathan Majors performance. And yeah, I thought it was a good movie. Solid movie, Jason. All right, next up. We've got Damaris Love, who writes, I would say Zendaya with how good she is and her upcoming tennis movie, but Florence and Anya are up there for best upcoming actress. And they're not upcoming. They are now. That's the thing. Anya Taylor-Joy and Florence Pugh are not upcoming. They are the two names talked about in Hollywood offices more than anybody else. It's not, they've got potential to be that. It's not that they're upcoming. They're here. Florence Pugh is about to be in 2 movies in a row that win Best Picture at the Academy Awards, with Oppenheimer this year, Dune 2 next year. Anya Taylor-Joy is already given many award-worthy performances. She's got now Furiosa coming out with George Miller back directing another World of Mad Max movie. So that's got a lot of people excited. They're not upcoming. They're here now. They are the hottest names in the business right now. So and Zendaya's getting up there too. I wouldn't put Zendaya on their level yet, but she can get there. But yeah, they're not upcoming. They're here. It's now, Damaris. All right. Next up, Patrick Hamilton writes, you talked about if Batman should kill or not earlier. All I could think of is when Batman strapped a bomb to a guy and blew him up in Batman Returns. Again, I want to say it was Mr. Sunday Movies. I could be wrong, but I think it was Mr. Sunday Movies. You can go and look this up. Look up Batman kill count. Actually, let me see if I can find it here. I'm not sure I can. Let's see. Batman kill count, Mr. Sunday Movies. I'm going to wonder. And yeah, it's here. Go find, like when we're done the show, go find this video, Batman movie kill count, because Batman in all the various Batman movies, Batman kills a lot and kills all the time. There's a lot of Batman killing. In all the Batman, from the Michael Keaton Batman movies to the Christopher Nolan Batman movies, Batman kills a lot. It just ain't that. But yeah, that is definitely one of the kills that Mr. Sunday Movie highlights in his video. It's hilarious. It's a good video. All right. Thanks for that, Patrick. Next up, Raymond Verada writes, International Women's Day falls on March 8th because it commemorates one of the first organized labor strikes by women who were seeking better wages and working conditions in the textile industry. That's a totally worthy thing. You know, it is still weird to believe that in the terms of history, it was not that long ago that women were not even allowed to vote. Now, there are people today who call that the good old days and are trying to take things back there. But that aside, it wasn't that long ago. I think today a lot of us forget that it wasn't that long ago. It was certainly in our parents' lifetime that it was legal to fire somebody from their job if you found out they were gay. In my parents' lifetime, not my great-great-grandparents, in my parents' lifetime, it was legal. If you worked at a company and somebody found out you were gay, it was legal. Just fire them. You're allowed to fire them. Fire them for being gay. Segregation was not that long ago. I mean, it's really weird, the fact you bring this up, that it's not like it was ancient Stone Age history. These horrible things about our society were very real and very present not that long ago. And we should remember that stuff. I mean, there are people today who are saying that stuff shouldn't be taught, and any books that talk about it should be burned and all that. But we got to remember this shit, guys. We've got to remember this shit, because there are people out there who want to drag us back to it. again, and refer to that stuff as the good old days. It's kind of weird, but we should remember this stuff. Anyway, thanks for bringing that up, Raymond. I appreciate that, man. Next up, Jedediah Elias writes, one of two. In the next 4 months alone, we have Shogun, Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire, Godzilla X Kong, Monkey Man. Oh, by the way, how exciting is Monkey Man? I cannot wait. That Dev Patel, that thing looks so freaking good. I cannot wait for Monkey Man. Anyway, Fallout, A24 Civil War, The Fall Guy. Let's see if I can find part 2 of Jet. Yeah. Ungentlemanly Warfare. I'm very excited about that too. My man, Henry Cavill. Planet of the Apes, If, Furiosa, Star Wars Acolyte, House of the Dragon, Bad Boys 4, Inside Out 2, The Boys, Bike Riders, Quiet Place Day 1. Could be the best year since 2022. Maybe 2022 wasn't that long ago. So you're just saying this could be a better year than 2023. I'll tell you what, listen, several of those things could turn out to be really, really bad. Right? Several of those could end up being really bad. Odds are, right? The rule of chance says some of those are going to be really bad, but I am so excited for a lot of the stuff we got coming up. It's a really, really, really good time. Really, really good time, man. It's an exciting era right now. Thanks for sharing that, Jedediah. All right. Christ Courage writes, hey, John, curious on something. How long does it normally take for a show to be picked up to being released? Amazon picked up my favorite book series, The Inheritance Game, as a series, but no news since. Thanks, and bring on the filthy. Well, so you're talking about how long does, like, a show hadn't been picked up? Like a show, if it already exists and then somebody picks it up and releases it, that's different. You're talking about, like, the rights to something being picked up and then being turned into something. If I'm understanding your question correctly, and I might not be, but I think I am. Anyway, the reality is the majority, not a huge majority, but the majority of things that get their rights picked up never actually get made into anything. That's the truth. That, you know how many screenwriters in this town, like not amateur screenwriter, but screenwriters, whatever, have had, I had a script optioned once. I don't talk about that a lot. I actually had a script optioned once by a little production company, optioned my script, never got made into anything. IPs, like book rights and story, like, get picked up all the time. And more times than not, they don't actually get made. Now, a bunch do get made, but that can be anywhere from 2 to 3 years to 15 to 20 years. I mean, there are a lot of movie projects that come out that I remember, man, I talked about this, like when the rights to this got picked up back when I was doing the movie blog 15 years ago. Like, I'm dead serious. Like, I remember there have been a couple movies that have come out in the last couple of years where it's like, I did a story about the studio picking up these rights and they're going to start developing this, like, when I was still doing the movie blog. So it totally varies. It completely varies. So this may happen. It may not happen at all. And then if it does happen, it could happen in the next 2 to 3 years. You might be waiting for another 10 years. It's every single, I know that sounds like a cop-out answer, but it's true. Every single situation is different. So I hope your thing gets made sooner rather than later, but keep your eye on it. All right. Next up, we've got Jedediah Last. Oh, we already did that part too. Okay. Jumping Jiminy Crickets writes, I think Florence is a force that's going to take her over. I'm talking full Meryl Streep, maybe. Also, I think Rachel Ziegler, Jenna Ortega is going to be the next big actress of the new generation. Here's the thing. And I say this as somebody who really likes Rachel Ziegler and I really like Jenna Ortega. But, and I'm just speaking for myself right now, like, I have not, look, Rachel Ziegler was so good in Steven Spielberg's West Side Story, like, so good. But a lot of that was her singing. She is a world-class vocalist. A lot of that was her singing. I'm not really sure how much of it was her acting and how much of it was her singing. She's very good as an actress. Like, I really liked her in the new Hunger Games movie. I thought she was quite solid in that. She was fabulous in West Side Story. But again, a lot of that was just because of her singing, because it's a musical, right? And I really like Jenna Ortega. I thought she was really good in Wednesday. I think she was like really good in the stabby Scream movies. Stabby, you know what I mean? The stabby movies. But I haven't seen, what I've seen in both of them is that they are both going to have a great career and be really entertaining and deliver some really good stuff. What I have not seen in either Rachel Ziegler yet or Jenna Ortega yet is that level of potential yet. I haven't seen that yet. I need like Jenna Ortega to have her Queen's Gambit. Because Wednesday wasn't that. Wednesday is really good and fun and very popular, but it was not Queen's Gambit. It wasn't like this thing that could have propelled her to like winning massive international acclaim. So I really like Rachel Ziegler. I really like Jenna Ortega. I just haven't seen from either of them yet that they have that potential to be that level. Not yet. They're both young. They're both just getting started. And ask me again in like 2 years. Could be very, very different story. All right. Next up. We've got Mike's Movie Madness, who writes, Florence is the hotter name right now because she's so relatable. Is she relatable? But I think she might get the Jennifer Lawrence treatment where people will hate on her for being relatable, which is so idiotic. Jennifer Lawrence is fantastic, by the way. I don't care what anybody says. And shut that up. But I don't know that Florence is the hotter name right now. Like I personally think it's Anya Taylor-Joy. But I mean, listen. It's Anya Taylor-Joy and it's Florence, right? It's 1 and 1A. And whatever order you put them in is fine, but the two of them are absolutely on fire right now. Like I said, they are the names that get brought up most in all the movie executive boardrooms and all the casting meetings and all that kind of stuff. It's either we want Anya Taylor-Joy or Florence Pugh, or we want a Anya Taylor-Joy or a Florence Pugh type. Like that's what's getting brought up all the name now. They are kind of the hottest things right now. And whatever order you put them in, there's no wrong answer. All right. Next up, Jedediah Elias writes, I saw a report on Twitter that the studio behind the Michael Jackson biopic expects it to make $1 billion. Okay. Unless they market it as some sort of Barbie / Oppenheimer tie-in, I can't see that happening. No, I don't see that happening at all. Now listen, I'm saying that having not seen the movie yet, having not seen a trailer yet, right? I might change my tune once I see a trailer, and obviously once I see the movie, maybe I change my tune. But I don't see it happening. Listen, because also I think there's going to be a lot of people. I'm not here to go into the controversy of it because I nor any of you are really qualified to go into the controversy of it much. But I think it's safe to say that there's going to be a bunch of people who do not even want this movie to be made. And I think there are a bunch of people out there, and I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I'm just saying there are a bunch of people out there who are not big Michael Jackson fans for extracurricular behavior. Again, I'm not saying he's guilty of that and not guilty of it. I'm just saying there's a lot of people out there. I know this movie's not going to make $1 billion. I might change my tune once I see it, but I just don't see how there's any possibility this movie becomes $1 billion movie. Not at all. Now, Canadian Spring is saying in the live chat, nobody wants a Michael Jackson biopic. You are wrong. There are many people who want a Michael Jackson biopic. There really are. I mean, for the longest time, going back to the AMC movie days, we've always would get questions about when are they going to do a Michael Jackson biopic? When are they going to do every time a new musical biopic would come out, whether it was Walk the Line or whether it was the Bohemian Rhapsody or whether it was Rocket Man or whatever, every time a new musical biopic would come out, when's the Michael Jackson one? Like, so you can say nobody wants a Michael Jackson biopic, but yes, they do. I mean, there are many people who don't, but there are a lot of people who do. So it's just something to keep in mind. All right. Next up, we got Mason Thurmond, who writes, the hottest actress right now is definitely Sydney Sweeney. No, she's not by a mile. Anya and Pugh don't come close. Haha. By haha, are you acknowledging that that is a silly thing to say? I think the haha and the winky is you clearly. And by the way, listen, she could become great. I don't think she is a world-class actress yet. I think she's very enjoyable to see on screen. I really do. But I don't think she's a world-class actress. But again, yet. She's real young. Let's see what happens in the next couple of years. All right, next up, King Daddy Goat writes, "Hey John, opinions on new Halloween show coming?" I didn't know there was a new Halloween show, and I have very little to no interest in it, to be honest with you. That thing's just been, that whole franchise has never really been great, except for that one, the first one that came out just a couple of years ago. Then the following two sucked. I've never been a big fan of it, so honestly, I'm not all that interested in it. I didn't even know there was a show of it coming. Jedediah Elias writes, "Hope you'll give that full description of the Coyote versus Acme script that leaked a few days ago a read." Why would I? No. Sounded like a perfectly great Looney Tunes movie. That's the thing. Scripts always look great. Scripts always look great. I remember, I use this as an example a lot, but it represents it. I remember I got my hands on a leaked script of Clash of the Titans. Remember they did a remake of Clash of the Titans a bunch of years, Sam Worthington, I think Liam Neeson was Zeus in it. Anyway, somebody had sent me a script of Clash of the Titans. And the script was great. Like I couldn't put the script down. I think I read the whole thing in one sitting. I loved it. I thought it was great. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to make such a great movie. Such a great movie. Scripts always look good. I mean, not always look good, but they often look good. And then the movie came out and it's like, yeah, this is the movie from the script I have. Yeah, it's the same. This is, but the movie's terrible. Right? The movie was terrible. Oh yes, iconic moment in movies. Liam Neeson saying, "Release the Kraken." It's like an all-time great moment, right? All-time great moment. But look, I've also heard that there are people who really like Lord and Miller have said that they saw Coyote versus Acme and said it's really good. But whether it's good or not is completely irrelevant. Will it make money? And right now, nobody believes that it will. Because Warner Brothers doesn't believe it's going to make any money. And then they put it up for sale to see if anybody wants to buy it. And they just put it up for the cost of the movie. They didn't mark it up at all. They said, look, it cost us $70 million to make this movie. So if just for our production costs, anybody want to take it? Anybody want it? Hey, Amazon, you want it? Netflix, you want it? Paramount, you want it? Disney, Universal, you want it? Here it is. Nobody wants it. Nobody wants it. Nobody in Hollywood believes that it would actually be profitable for them to put up the money and get it. Warner Brothers doesn't even think they'll make back the marketing budget to release it. So nobody's putting out. And listen, what I would say to all these people, because I've had people say this to me too about projects that I've wanted, and they're not wrong. What I would say to all these people, because a lot of them are very rich people, Lord and Miller and a bunch of others who've come out and say, this thing should be released. Okay, you buy it. Go to the bank. You're rich. You can get a big loan. Get some of your rich friends together that all like it, and you put up your money and you buy it. Notice none of them are doing that either. And I adore Lord Miller. You know I do. But I'm just saying, it's great for somebody to say, it's easy to say that they should absolutely be putting this out there, or this studio should absolutely buy it and put it out. This needs to be put out. Okay. Put your money where your mouth is. Put your money where your mouth is. Get the money together. They're not asking for $1 billion. They're asking for $70 million. If you're so sure that it's going to do great, then you take the risk. Because if you really thought it was going to make money, you'd find a way to come up with $70 million. You would find a way to come up with $70 million. If you really believed, if you were 100% convinced that it was going to make money, you'd come up with the money. You put that money into it, make a profit, but nobody thinks it'll make a profit. And listen, I think that sucks because I've heard it's good. I want to see it. I think it sounds like a really interesting concept. I'm intrigued by it. I want to see this movie, but if nobody wants to put up the money for it and nobody believes it's going to make any money, I can't fault them for not putting it out. I can't fault them. I get it. It's a business. It's a business. Anyway, let's keep going here. Next up, we've got, or that was Jedediah Elias. Next up, we got 1253 Sir 3, who writes, been to see Dune Part 2 for the third time in a week. Nice. Twice in IMAX. That is how much I care. I'm planning for a fourth. You sound like my wife, man. Because Anne, like, she's like, I want to go see it like 5 or 6 more times. She's already planning about when we're going to go to, she's already mapping out. Like, I kid you not. I said this on the show the other day, but I'm not joking. The other day, my wife was sitting there planning. I was like, okay, here's where the biggest IMAX screens are around us. This one's here. This one's at Universal. This one's over here. Let's start planning out our calendar about going to see Dune at each one of these things. I'm like, okay. So like, yeah, she wants to see it a ton, man. So you're just like her, dude. All right. Next up, Creed S writes, John, I'm a business student working on a thesis inspired by your show. Oh, thank you so much, man. It's about the business models of streamers. How many gift memberships to get you to share my survey? Cool if you don't want to. No, no. I'm not going, listen, one of the reasons, and it's nothing against you, Creed, but my audience doesn't want to see me putting out surveys. I think it's totally valid that you're trying to get a survey out there. I think it's totally valid, absolutely. This is nothing against you or anything like that, but my audience doesn't want me to put out a survey. No, thank you for the offer to get memberships, but probably no, because my audience comes to my channel. I want to respect they're spending their time coming to my channel. So I want to respect that time and try to give them what it is they're expecting to see. Now you would say, but John, you have sponsorships. Well, yeah, because my audience wants to see Ray and they want to see Jonathan and they want to see Rob and they want to see Chris. And the only way I can afford to do that, have Ray and Rob and Jonathan and Chris, is if I have sponsors. So, I mean, that makes all that possible because I am a very tiny YouTube channel. Like, I think people forget that sometimes. Like, this channel is a tiny YouTube channel compared to what are actually big YouTube channels. We are tiny. This YouTube channel, and I have more employees. I think I have more employees than any other YouTube channel my size. And the only reason I'm able to do that is because I think we make more money on this YouTube channel than any other channel my size. Again, because we're tiny. We're tiny. There's lots of YouTube channels have more employees and have way more money than I make and all that kind of stuff. And I'm thrilled for their success. But we are a tiny, 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 tiny YouTube channel. People think I'm joking when I say I'm a nobody. I am very much a nobody. Okay. I'm some loser Canadian sitting by myself with a couple of lights and a camera on my face. I'm nothing and I'm nobody. But we do pretty well for being a tiny channel, and we do pretty well for being a nobody. But part of that comes from I got to respect my audience and the people who come here invest their time. So, with all great respect, Creed S, I think it's awesome that you are a business student. I think it's awesome you're working on your thesis, and I hope you great success. And thank you so much for offering to get memberships. That's awesome of you. But I have to politely decline. Thank you, man. And I hope you understand why. All right, next up. And our last question of the day comes to us from Jedediah Elias, who writes, so excited to rewatch Dune Part 2 in Dolby Cinema soon. It's such a great experience, man. What's the best movie you've seen in that format? Seeing John Wick 4 that way made me wish the sound design got an Oscar nomination this year. You know, I don't know what my favorite... I just love the AMC Dolby Prime. It's my favorite movie theater to watch movies in. I couldn't tell you which movie I saw in there took the best advantage of the format and stuff like that. A lot of them have been great. Interstellar looked great in it. Like a lot of movies look fantastic in there. That's just the thing about it. And Dune is certainly no exception. So I can't give you a movie definitively, but yeah, it's quite an experience. I think you're going to love watching Dune on that screen, man. And I hope you have a really good time. And you know what, guys? Even though I'm supposed to be home already, I'm going to take a couple of minutes and take some questions in the live chat if you guys want. Do me a favor. If you have a question, format it like this. Put question. See in the live chat, I just put question. So put question : and then ask. So that way I know if you're asking me a question or if you're asking, if you're talking to each other. Again, and by the way, I'm not going to answer everyone. I'm just going to pick a couple out here and answer them. Let's see. Josh Chambers writes, do you know the reason why the first It made over 700 million and no other horror movie can make that type of money? I think horror I mean, there's no definitive answer, but horror is not for everybody, right? Horror just isn't for everybody. There's a lot of people like Chris Carr, for instance, that has no interest in going to a horror film. Horror has a very passionate fan base, but, and can be very, very successful. But yeah, it's just horror also has a lot of people that's just not for them. And I think that's fair. Let's see. Question: who wins the NBA finals? I would put my money on the Denver Nuggets. I don't see anybody who can beat them in a 7-game series, to be honest with you. Jokic is the best player on the planet right now. And I just don't see, they also just beat Boston. And so, yeah, I think they win the NBA finals right now. Let's see. Terrence Fisher writes, what cameras and tech are you looking at now that you want? It's funny. There's not so much tech, but there's a camera I'm very interested in, and it's a little older now. They just had the Mark II come out, which is the the Sony A7C. The Sony A7C. It is a full frame Big Brother camera to like the some of the Sony A6400s that I have. It's a full frame sensor, which is better than the cameras I have. The problem is that I would need like 4 of them, and they're like over $2,000 each plus lenses. So I can't really do that, but those would be ones I would really, really love to have. All right. Andy Mayers writes, have you ever been to CES in Vegas? I have been to CES in Vegas once. It was really fun. I prefer NAB because that's more for like broadcasters and video creators and stuff like that. And I'm going to NAB the week after CinemaCon because it's also in Vegas, like the week after CinemaCon. I love NAB and I'll be going to that. Let's see here. Andy Mayers writes, favorite Nintendo console? Honestly, the Switch. I think the Switch is brilliant. What they did with that is fantastic. I really, really like the Switch. Let's see. Rick Alfonso writes, do you think Netflix and Amazon or Apple should release their original movies in theaters rather than just keep exclusively on streaming? Yeah, 100%. I've been saying that forever. Because your movies will do better on streaming if you put them in theaters first. That's been proven. It's not an opinion. It has been statistically fact-checked. It is a statistic truth. When you put movies in theaters first, they will do better on streaming than if you just put them on streaming without a theatrical release first. So yes, I 100% believe they should do that. No doubt in my mind. Let's see here. Jake Clark writes, a favorite Pugh and Joy performance. I think Joy's got to be, Anya Taylor-Joy's has got to be Queen's Gambit. I think she's also going to be brilliant in Furiosa, but Queen's Gambit and Pugh, it's funny because it's a movie I didn't even like all that much, which is Don't Worry, Darling. But she's fabulous in it, like absolutely fabulous in it. Let's see. Irene Johnson writes, favorite sponsor to date. Well, I love all my sponsors, all of our sponsors. But I mean, and I don't think anybody would be surprised to hear that my favorite sponsor is Mint Mobile. They have been a daily sponsor. They're no longer a daily sponsor. Like most sponsors will do like 12 weeks, like 4 to 12 weeks. like 1 week a month for 4 to 12 months. That's what most sponsorships do. Mint Mobile has been our daily sponsor for well over 2.5 years. Way more than any sponsors normally do. Now, they are no longer, just as of last week, they're no longer our daily sponsor, but they are still going to be a sponsor 1 week a month. Yeah, clearly they have been great to us. They've been wonderful to us. And yeah, I absolutely, they've been there for us for years. They've been there for us for years. They've been absolutely fabulous. I love those guys. And of course, Ryan Reynolds is behind that, and good Canadian kid and all that kind of stuff. Let's see here. Jedi Swit writes, if the movie is good, will you do an open spoiler discussion for Deadpool 3? Oh, I'll be doing an open spoiler discussion for that, whether it's good or bad. Because if that's bad, I'll have a lot to say. And if it's good, I'll have a lot to say. So I will absolutely 100% be doing an open spoiler discussion for Deadpool 3. No doubt. Dominic Alvarez writes, Dune 2 or Oppenheimer? That's easy. It's not even close. Dune 2 by a mile. I love Oppenheimer. Excited about it winning Best Picture this year. But it's not even close. Dune is an infinitely better film than everything that came out this year. Let's see here. Last question, and sorry, they're going by pretty quick. Let's see here. There's a question about Hogwarts. Let me see if I can get that on there. I keep losing it though because people keep... Okay, let's try this. John A.M. writes, do you think the Harry Potter reboot series will still use the iconic Hogwarts castle and music theme? Yes. Yeah. Hogwarts castle is now... Hogwarts in it of itself is a major Harry Potter character almost, right? Like not only in all the movies, but also in the game and stuff like that. And of course you got Harry Potter Wizarding World at the various parks around the world, like Universal City Walk in Hollywood. They've got the Wizarding World. They got the giant Hogwarts castle. It's too iconic. So I don't know as a fact, but I 100% believe that when they do the Harry Potter series, that they will definitely still use the Harry Potter music. And I 100% believe they will watch, they will use the Hogwarts castle, the classic Hogwarts. I really do believe they're going to do that. So yeah, there we go. All right. And guys, that'll do it for today's installment of Open Mic. Thanks so much for being here and making this little show part of your day. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in questions. Number one, because you gave me great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this little channel as you did it. And all of us involved with the John Campea Show, thank you guys so very much for your support. Oscars are on Sunday. Can't wait for that. I'll probably do a little video reaction after the Oscars are done on Sunday and put that up online. Otherwise, we'll be back on Monday with me, Ray, Jonathan, and Rob is in on Monday. So we'll see you guys then. That'll do it for me for now, guys. Thank you so much for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.